Well, and speaking of needing a little luck and adapting to the times, our last serious article anyway is actually from MIT Technology Review, and I particularly found this one fascinating. We've talked in the past about was AI eliminating the need for SEO, or was there an issue with AI SEO and what that meant?
Hmm.
And this article is entitled "Your Most Important Customer May Be AI." And the what I think is so interesting and challenging with that, or with the idea here, is that the premise what isn't really about SEO exactly. It's about looking at AI as a new kind of consumer of your website or of your data. And it gives an example. The opening paragraph of this article is imagining that you have a meal prep company. So one of these I forget the name of them, but these companies that sell prepared meals and what have you, and that AI sees their ads and describes the company as complicated and confusing. And the reason is that in the ads is talking about chopped chives, and that
Hmm.
nobody wants to do that, and therefore this thing that how it's interpreting it. And so these articles talking about the fact that we now need to start looking effectively at the content we produce and how we position ourselves in the market through the lens of how AI is going to interpret that and see it. And we'll see. I mean, I found it's compelling and thought provoking. I'm not sure I buy it, in that in the end our goal is to create AI that sees the world as we do, to give us the information that we need in a way that's meaningful. Um, but in the short term, anyway, this may be one of those hacks that if you've sort of cracked this code, um, that it could create this an advantage. So it was just an interesting angle of just recognizing that fundamentally AI is ultimately changing everything.
But I think another interesting piece of the puzzle that got brought up in this article is that each model will have its own specific set of assumptions and preferences and biases and blocks. So, as let's go with a political example, a Chinese political example in this case. Winnie the Pooh gets brought up as a derogatory mention of Xi, in China. If you try to use Winnie the Pooh references on a Chinese model, it will probably block what you're doing. If you're comparing yourself to Winnie the Pooh, even in the most harmless manner as an American product, you're not going to reach a Chinese customer using AI. And things like that are going to, like little things like that are going to be really important to consider whether you're working with an EU-based model, a US-based model, or a Chinese model, which kind of seem to be the three centers right now, uh, and having to realize that you're going to have to culturally uh, understand each of these models is interesting, especially at a time when we are talking about perhaps homogenizing some of our own culture and influence in the United States, or ironically going to have to be more multinational in our approach to work with AI because that's just the way AI world works.
Yeah, and what I do think is interesting about that is that, if I think about if you're a marketer and you're looking at it from an SEO perspective, it was complicated and it was difficult because Google changed their rules all the time. But at the very least, and they were obscure, right? You didn't know, they were opaque, I guess I should say, about it. You didn't know exactly what the rules were. Everyone was sort of guessing and trying to hack it. But at least it was one entity, it was Google. And now to your point, you're having to look at this from any number of
Mm-hmm.
perspectives. And we're not even talking about the fact that uh, within a large enterprise, if you're targeting enterprise buyers, as an example, they may very well be instituting policies where you're not using the public models, you're using some kind of a custom model that's accessing the internet, and they're tuning that in your own way. So it's going to really, which is why in the end I'm saying I'm not sure I'm buying this over the long haul, but in the short term, I think it definitely introduces some interesting challenges as you try to
Mm-hmm.
sort all that out.
Absolutely.